up there.
Yeah, I moved to Freeport because I knew Chuck D and Flavor Flav lived next door from Roosevelt.
There you go. Roosevelt
Yeah.
gave the world to Eddie Murphy
Exactly.
and Dr. J
Yes.
and Method Man. But
Mhm.
Long Beach, we were talking about a little bit. Rick Rubin originally came from here, from Lido Beach, and
Rick
Long Beach.
Rubin, big shout out to Rick Rubin, produced the Racing Hell album for Run DMC. He was actually the guy that thought of doing the Walk This Way song with Aerosmith. Originally, me and Run was just going to steal their music and make our own song out of it. But Rick was like, no, I think you should do it over the way the band originally did it. And originally, me and Run was against it. We was like, no, Run's thing was always, but D got rhymes, D got lyrics, D got bars. We want to steal their music, use their music to lay down our own vocals. But Rick was like, no, learn the record, do the record the way the band originally did it. So me and Run didn't want to do it with a little reluctance and a little bit of enthusiastic persuasion from Rick Rubin and Jay. We said, okay, we'll do it. But the beautiful thing about that is while we were, now, me and Run had never heard the whole song. Because when we was growing up in Hollis, Queens, New York, which isn't too far from here, and we was doing the block parties and the park parties and house parties, this is before Rappers Delight. So there was no hip-hop records at all. So the DJs would look for break beats so that the rappers could say their raps. So we used a lot of James Brown records because James Brown always had a funky drummer break in the record.
Right.
We used a lot of funk records because funk was always melodical. We used a lot of jazz records. And some of the OGs in here like me, y'all remember disco, right? Remember you woke up one day and the whole world was like, disco sucks. And they threw disco away, but we grabbed it because disco always had that bass line or that space where the rappers could rap. But also, people don't realize rock and roll, rock music, classic rock and folk rock is a fundamental part of hip hop. We used a lot of those records to say our rhymes over. So me and Run didn't know the history of Aerosmith. For us, it was get the album with the toys in it, Toys in the Attic. Yeah. Get the album with the toys in it and play number 4. And the reason why we didn't know it was Walk This Way, the DJs would scratch the label off the record so the rival DJs wouldn't see what beat you was playing. So all me and Run knew was the album with the toys on it, number 4. We was going to loop that record and make our own version. I remember my rap to this day. It was supposed to go boom, dat, boom, doom, dat, boom, dat, boom, doom, dat, and Jay would scratch back to the beginning, vooka, 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 boom. So it was like 8 bars of drums, 8 bars of guitars, Jay scratching, literally DJing the whole record. My rhyme was, Run DMC came out in '83 with our first single. It wasn't albums yet. And my rhyme was, I'm DMC in the place to be, been rhyming on the mic since '83, because it's '86 now. There'll never be an MC better than me. That's why they call me the K-I-N-G. And then Run was supposed to come with that, the Run DMC, switching off style. I'm DJ Run, and I'm having fun here to get it done from under the sun. Yeah. Typical Run DMC stuff. So Jam Master Jay and Rick Rubin they took the record off the turntable. So a lot of young people who probably don't even know what a turntable is.
No, vinyl's cool again.
I got kids that go, what is
like
that? The
vinyl.
CD and this and that. So we took the record off the turntable. Me and Run had to put the needle on the record, take out a notebook, the yellow notebook pages, and a big pen. Remember big ballpoint pens were everywhere? So we had to sit there and let the record play and write down the lyrics. We did not know while we were doing this here in New York, Rick calls up Aerosmith in Boston. Yo, what's up? My name is Rick Rubin. I know you know who Run DMC is. I'm producing an album for him. We want to do a remake of your record. Do you want to do it? So imagine a person on the other end of the phone. Who is this? Right. My name is Rick Rubin. I know you know of Run DMC. We're doing an album, and then we're going to do your record over. Hold on. They put Rick on hold. Hey, guys. Now, Aerosmith at that time, we didn't know that they were gone. Like, people, their fans and Rocket Stone, you knew this. Aerosmith was like over. And the joke is, Aerosmith could have made a record with God, Jesus, and Moses, and nobody would have cared. Like, that's how far they were going.
Yeah.
So the person on the phone says, there's some guy named Rick Rubin on the phone talking about Run DMC is doing your record over. Do y'all want to do it? So for them, God, Jesus, and Moses wouldn't have worked. A $300 million marketing and promotion campaign wouldn't have worked. They was like, you know what? What do we got to lose? So Rick brings them to New York City. We record the version of the record that you're here to this day. But then Rick and them took it another step further. They say we're going to do a video for it. So we did the video that everybody knows now. And the beautiful thing about that is people need to understand it's the arts that will empower. It's the arts that will open our children up to be receptive for kindness, truth, and gender. And when I say the arts, I'm talking about painting, writing, poetry, literature, music, and all of that. It's the arts that succeeds where politics and religion fails. Politics is cool, it'll drive you crazy, and sometimes religion gets to the point where we exclude each other. The reason why I bring that up, Rick was so brilliant. If we would have just did the record over, the version that you're here without Aerosmith, it would have been, yo, remember that video in '86 Run DMC did when they did Walk This Way Over? But by bringing Aerosmith with us, what did we do? We're knocking down the walls of separation. There's no such thing, and this is why libraries are so important in literature and storytelling. This is why libraries are so important. First of all, they're on the cusp of all technology. They got everything, the computers and all of that. But they got books, and they got stories. We knocked down walls of separation. Everybody was separated. White people and black people were so-called separated. Rock and hip-hop was so-called separated. The 60s, 70s, 80s was so-called separated. To this day, I've been to South Sudan, which was crazy but beautiful. I've been to South Sudan. I've been to Russia and Ukraine in the same tour. It hurts me to see them fighting, but Putin's on something. We got to fix him. I've been to Asia and I've been to Europe. Long story short, all to this day, when I go to these different countries, to this day I could go tomorrow, and they go, DMC, when Steven Tyler took that mic stand and knocked down the wall in that Walk This Way video, that didn't just happen in the video. It happened in the world. Rick was smart. He said we could have just did the record and talked about it. But Rick knew vision, experience is the thing that transforms nations, culture, and people. When people saw Run DMC with Aerosmith, they saw it could be done. Right. But they also saw something that existed for years and years. Black artists always played with white artists and this and that. So when you look at the artists, the journalists, the storytellers, the poets, the painters, even the chefs, anything that's creative, that somebody can experience and then try for themselves, those are the things that free us. So Walk This Way did a dynamic thing. It changed music.
Yes, definitely did.
It changed race relations.
Sure.
It changed the perception of fashion and style and what's hip. To this day, all of these artists will say, yo, we exist because of you. Korn, Limp Bizkit, Rage Against the Machine. We created a genre called rap rock that already existed, but it needs people to define it. Like all of us in this room, we're hope in motion. And when I say libraries are so powerful, my gift being in this music business, it all started with two things. It started with books. And when I was a little kid since kindergarten, I was a comic book kid. And all I did was read, collect, and draw comic books. That's all I wanted to do, read, collect, and draw. Read, collect, and draw. Read, collect, and draw. Now, because I was reading these comic books, it made me want to pay attention in school so I can understand what in the world Tony Stark was talking about. So if you think about it, in school, you know, I had science and I had history. So the science teacher would tell me about the sun, the moon, and the stars, but the Silver Surfer would take me there. And then when I was looking at the comic book superheroes, when I was growing up in Hollis, Queens, The only time I saw smart, nerdy, awkward people, because that was me. I was a kid growing up trying to fit in and make it in this world, you know what I'm saying? I didn't want to be in a gang. I didn't want to sell drugs. I didn't want to steal, lie, and cheat. So it was kind of hard for me. But Stan Lee was brilliant because he put the superheroes really in New York City. So it was kind of real to me. And imagination had a lot to do with it. And the reason why I'm saying this, I'm seeing Tony Starks. I'm seeing Bruce Wayne. I'm seeing Reed Richards. And the ultimate one of all, I'm seeing Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Where does he live at? Where do I live at? So it was like real to me. But then I noticed something. The only time I saw awesome, smart, educated, superpowered beings who were struggling like me was in the comic books. So I was sitting there one day, and I was like, oh, so it's okay not to always come out on the winning end. Even a superhero fails. All these superheroes got personal issues. So I was reading these so-called make-believe imaginary heroes, but I saw myself in them. So now, I'm reading comic books. I'm getting inspired. Right. And then I'm learning in school, right? So I got all this stuff coming into me, but no way to get it out. And then the other thing was, I was born May 31st, 1964. In the 70s, y'all remember the radio stations in New York City, WWABC, Dan Ingram, and all of those guys. What was beautiful about those stations was it wasn't segregated. You would hear James Brown, but then you would hear Led Zeppelin. You would hear Jim Croce and Harry Chapin, but then you would hear the Jackson 5. Then you would hear the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and then you would hear Sly and Family Stone. But for some reason, when I was a kid, I wasn't attracted to black soul music. Why? Let me explain. Because that's when my mom, they still cool. I mean, they passed away. But my mother and father, Al Green, Aretha Franklin, and Marvin Gaye, for instance, was their music. That's when my moms, and they were cool. They were dancing and stuff like, as a little kid, why is daddy kissing mommy like that? What are they doing? They're supposed to be parents. So I didn't have a music. But on those radio stations, when I heard Harry Chapin, Jim Croce.
We're going to come back to Harry Chapin in a little bit because
all right,
that's
so long story
about
short,
your career.
It was comic books, then it was school. I had an interest in school because I needed to understand what was in comic books. And then it was 70s rock, 60s folk rock, and 60s so-called classic rock, folk rock, and 70s rock and roll. So now I got all of this stuff in me. The fortunate thing that happened to me was this thing called hip-hop came over the bridge to Queens. And for me, it wasn't about show business. It was like, oh, shoot. You could tell stories about who you are over the music the same way Mick and Freddie and Aretha and stuff like that. So that's the thing that made me want to get into music. I was able to speak about me and to every young person and not be ashamed of who I am.
Well, going back to what we were talking about with rock, a lot of people rush to talk about the influence that Run DMC had by combining rock and hip-hop with Walk This Way. But that was your third or fourth rock single. It started with Rock Box, which that's
the first hip-hop music on MTV.
Yeah.
That's before Walk This Way. It's good that you bring that up.
And Rock Box, which did Larry Smith co-write that?
Larry Smith produced it, and Eddie Martinez from a band called Quiet Riot played the guitar on that.
Right.
That was 84 on our first album that went gold, because prior to that, everything was singles.
Yeah.
There was no hip-hop album. So we did our first single, It's Like That, and That's the Way It Is. B-side was Sucker MCs, 2 records that exploded across the nation.
Yeah.
Then the second single was Hard Times, Jam Master Jay, good, great follow-ups. And then we got souped. The arts will give young people with such an enthusiasm about themselves, they will do anything. So we took it upon ourselves and said, we're going to make a whole hip-hop album. And at the time, the world was like, hold up, wait, slow your roll. We like these 1 and 2 singles, but they said this, there's no way anybody wants to hear a whole hip-hop album. 1984, we did Rock Box, did a whole hip-hop album. The album went gold, sold 500,000 copies, and got us on MTV.
And definitely deserves that applause. And when you go down the list of things that Daryl was amongst the first First double platinum hip hop album, I do believe. First hip hop artist on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Yeah, first on MTV, first in the Rolling Stone, first with a sneaker deal before Kanye Yeezys. 1986, we was the first non-athletic entity to receive a major sports endorsement from a sports apparel company. And I go into high schools, I go into middle schools, and have a children's book out now for kindergarten to fifth graders. And I tell them, believe in yourself, have a confidence, forget what the bullies say.
Mm-hmm.
They're only bullying you because they're paying attention to you. Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That means they watching you. And they're jealous and they're mad at something because of your greatness. But I say, don't be ashamed of who you are. Share your ideas, share your thoughts, because you never know. You might not just change your life, you might wind up changing the world. Yeah. And that's what Run DMC represents. You know, when people saw us, even though we were so dynamic, when people saw us, they saw the potential in themselves. It was a little different than now when you see these rappers. It's, you know, who's your stylist and what you drive and this and that. When Run DMC and Tribe Called Quest and the Beastie Boys and Eric B. and Rakim and De La Soul, when we walked the red carpets, it was, why are you young people making the music and saying what you're saying? We were representing something. And one of the things that also made Run DMC great, I always tell young people, hey, you have a responsibility. Mm-hmm. I don't care how good you can play basketball. I don't care how good you can sing. I don't care how good you cook, paint, or dance and stuff like that. You have a responsibility with those positions. And for us, we learned from people like Neil Young and John Lennon and even Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye was the sexy soul love singing man, but he took time out to make a record called What's Going On. We realized that everybody from the Beatles to John Lennon to Neil Young, Crosby, Stills, Young and Nash, Curtis Mayfield, James Brown, their first responsibility was to the audience. So we was given a gift to steal all the music we heard on the radio and steal all the music from everybody we saw on Soul Train that puts us in this position. You know, your inspiration puts you in a position not because you're great.
Right.
I want people to understand this, especially young people. You're not put in that position because you're great. You have a talent, and now you have a responsibility with it. So Run DMC always wanted to represent, all right, maybe you can't rap. Maybe you can't produce. Maybe you can't this. Maybe you can't draw. Maybe you can't break, you know, whatever it is of that, but you could do something. And I always got to tell kids, hip-hop didn't just create rappers. It created CEOs and scientists and educators. I mean, I travel this world and people come up to me. I'm a doctor because of Run DMC and the Beastie Boys. You know what I'm saying? I'm on Wall Street because of Run DMC and the Beastie Boys and Eric B. and Rakim. Your talent and the inspiration, when that inspiration comes to you, that's a message to you.
Right.
That you have a purpose and a destiny in this world that you can't possibly comprehend. Well, me and Run always wanted Paul McCartney and Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson to say when we walked in the room, we didn't want to say how good we were. We wanted them to say, I like what you're doing. And every musician from John Fogerty to Mick Mars to Chuck Berry. I got to meet Chuck Berry and all of these guys.
Well, Mick Mars was on one of your records.
I didn't want to spoil that yet. But yeah, everybody that we met, all of these great guys said, y'all change stuff, but we like what you're doing. You have a responsibility. And that comes from knowing that it's kind of like the superhero cliche. Mm-hmm. With great power comes great responsibility.
Sure.
That actually came true for me.
And is still coming true. Yep. And to me, one of the awesome things about your career is that these songs were initially hits in 1986 and 1988, but so many of these hits a decade later, we become a hit again. So, for example, It's Like That, which you mentioned before, became a huge hit again in 97, 98, around then. In Europe, it led to you playing
Jason Evans remix.
Yeah, that was a huge deal. And then if you look at Rockbox, which we were just talking about, the Chris Rock track,
yes,
Champagne Room.
Yep, exactly. For that. Now, that being said, when you talk about rock and roll, I want, and especially want all the hip hoppers to understand this. when you say classic doesn't mean old. Classic means better than everything that comes after it for eternity. So a classic song doesn't get old because it resonates with every generation. It takes down the ageism and the generational divides that man puts up so that they can control or narrate a particular culture, feeling, art form, or whatever it is. With hip hop, old school is not a time period.
Right.
Old school is how do you consciously, creatively, and artistically present who you are. What we say, it's never old school, it's all brand new. So we was looking like, how could a song that the Beatles and the Stones made in the 60s still kick everybody's butt to this day? We want to do that. Yeah. And we were young kids that had higher expectations about ourselves. And one of the reasons why we had those higher expectations, I'm glad I'm in the library, is because we read. Yeah. We read. I remember Miss Brown, my library teacher, and the teachers in my school, if they saw that you wanted to be the class clown and a comedian, that means that you had humor and laughter in you. So they would slip you books that would make you laugh. If the other kid was like a brainiac in a scientist book, they knew to give him the science fiction books. If the other kid wanted to be artistic, you would get those books. So we came from a generation where, y'all remember albums, vinyl record, right? Remember the album covers? You got to understand, the music was you heard it. The album covers, you saw it, but then you would open up and you would read it. That does something. That does something to the spiritual, emotional, physical makeup of a human being. So we come from that era when you would read the liner notes and something like that. Nowadays, music is, now it's terrific that every record, I tell kids this all the time, you have every record in existence at the push of a button. Right. So it's just boom, 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 boom. So they could go through they could go through every record, but we need to slow them down a little bit and take those records one by one and ask the kids, what are you experiencing? Life is about experiences. So when we heard certain songs, you know, the whole scientific thing, music makes you feel a certain way. So when we saw, man, if you could do that, I didn't want to make a song in 86 that would die in 89. I wanted boys, girls, men, women, and grown-ups and educators to say, that's a great song. Why did you do that? Or I can relate to that. Right. What made you do that? Yo, everything. I mean, I meet people and go, yo, Daryl, your music speaks to me and this and that, and we all do that. So one of the things that allowed us and hip-hop to do what it is, young people, once again, we realized something. Now, everything that I'm saying now, I was saying when I was 15 before I made my first record. And when I was 12 years old, I found out something. And all of those boys and the girls from the Bronx who created hip-hop, we discovered something. We found out that old people ain't old. Old people is experience. The fact that a person is sitting in, been around that long, means they know something, they experience something, and even if you don't want to listen, they might not say everything that could relate to you, but if you shut up and just pay attention, they will say something that will resonate with you. Now, if it don't resonate with you young people now, I guarantee you, when you get 18, when you get 20, when you get 40 years old, you will look back on the day and say, I remember when that old man said that. Or when that. So they experienced. So we looked at the elders as experience. Mm-hmm. And we said, okay, here's what they was able to do. So if they was able to do that, if Steven Tyler and Joe Perry was able to do that in 74, we're going to do this in 86, and then somebody in 2021 will be affected by it. So we always saw that there was a creative connection. Mm-hmm. We always knew that I love being in the library. There's a story. There's a story to tell And if you're not ashamed to tell your story, we also knew this. In the beginning, hip hop was black ghetto music. So you gotta understand, I grew up in Hollis, Queens, New York, right? I had both parents in my house. I went to Catholic school. Anybody here went to Catholic school? With the nuns and the whole Blues Brother experience with the yardstick? Yeah, we went through all of that. But I went to Catholic school. I had both parents in my house, and we had backyards and stuff like that. When I first started hearing music, I realized that one song from a poor person could transform the ignorance of all the wealthy. And then one song from a wealthy person who wants to let these people know, don't put me up on a pedestal. I'm no different from you. If I got hair, you can too. Right. I was speaking to Jesse Jackson, and Jesse Jackson said 20 years ago, MTV Cribs is cool, but it shows results. It doesn't show process. So for me, I was growing up in Hollis, Queens, New York. I was like, wow, a lot of the things the elders talk about is true. If you educate yourself, you could go anywhere that you want to go because you got a piece of paper that says you know something. But if you try to lie, cheat, and steal, there's only two places you can go, to jail or to the grave. Right. So the boys and girls that created hip-hop, we wanted to have safe, kind, nice, gentle fun. That was the whole motivation behind hip-hop. And how did you do that? We got to the point we were saying, fighting each other over corners we don't own, shooting and stabbing each other, selling drugs in our own community, killing our own people. It's not getting us nowhere. So we decided to educate ourselves. And then when we educated ourselves, we discovered that we had abilities. This is very like a movie and stuff like that. What do you do? Man, I can play some music. Right. What do? I can do poetry. Well, put the poetry with the music. That's how hip-hop started, boys and girls. All we did was put the poetry to music. Then it went even further. It was like some of the boys and girls who couldn't even read and write. Now, one of the things that's going on in our communities, especially we see it in entertainment with the adults. The politicians act like they hate each other. The celebrity, go on Twitter. Like, if you look at some of the kids' Twitter stuff and the bullying and stuff that's going on, there's a reason why they think they got permission to do that. Look at the adults. You got grown men and women in front of our children. I'm talking about celebrity known people, such and such is fighting and Kim is doing in front of the children. So when we saw that, we said, nah, that's not what we want to do. So it got to the point where if a boy and girl couldn't read and write, I'm the smart dude in my crew. Mm-hmm. It was me, Run, Jay, Ray, Douglas, and Terry. So I was the smartest. If a new kid, boy or girl, came into my crew, I didn't get paid for this. It was, Daryl, what your job is? Yes. I got to teach Horatio how to read and write so that when we all walk into a room, we all know how to read and write. And with that, Horatio or Henrietta will have a confidence about ourselves now. What could you do? They'll go, well, I'm trying to figure out this read and writing stuff. I don't know music. I don't know poetry, but when I hear the music, I feel like dancing. Right. And you go, you want to dance? And you young people in this room, y'all have the ability. All of you young people in the room, I'm putting it on you. Don't get nervous because y'all can do it easily. She's like, no, don't tell me that. Y'all have the ability to solve every problem us adults can. And let me show you how dynamic you young people are. They asked a young boy and girl in the Bronx in the 70s, you want to dance? Yeah, I want to dance, right? So, you want to do the tango? No, I don't want to do the tango. You want to do calypso? No, I don't want to do calypso. You want to do ballet? No, I don't want to do ballet. You want to tap that? No, I don't want. You want to dance? What do you want to do? I want to spin on my head. So the world laughed at this young person that had this vision, and you got to see where I'm going with this, that had this vision. Come here. Hey, world, come here. These boys and girls want to dance and spin on their head. So did those young boys and girls walk away dejected, rejected? No, they went and said, we're going to figure out how we're going to spin on our heads. And one kid that paid attention to everything, all you kids, pay attention to everything. Said, you know what? Get me some scissors. And other kids was like, what do you mean, get some scissors? Just go get me some scissors. So one kid ran home, got the scissors, came back. Okay, here, Mr. Smarty Pants. Here's the scissors. How is these scissors going to allow us to dance? And this kid said, because he paid attention to the world he was in, go to the grocery store. What do you want us to go shop? No, you ain't got to buy that. Go to the garbage cans and go in the back of the grocery store to the green bins and bring me all the cardboard boxes. Because this kid was looking, he was like, okay, when they stack the shelves in the grocery, they throw out the boxes. If we cut the cardboard boxes up and put it on the concrete, we got a dance floor. That's how breakdancing started. And then it didn't end there. And this is what I'm showing you, that the arts, hip-hop, the kids that were doing graffiti, the only thing wrong about that was they were writing on walls they didn't own. And little kids, I don't want to scare you, but your mother and father and grandmother and grandfather will tell you this. You don't own anything until you work for it and buy it. Or if you don't want to work and buy it, you got to get a hammer and nail and build it yourselves. Then you can say it's yours. We don't tell you no because we don't love you. We telling you no because there's something you got to do before you can have it. You got to work to do it. So long story short, the boys and girls were writing on walls they didn't own. And they had to hide themselves. They had to sneak into the train yards at night when nobody's around to put the art that they had inside of them. And rightfully so. I'll tell kids in a minute, you write on my wall, I'm sending you to jail. Oh, really? Yes.
Well, but weren't you in the movie Crush Groove?
Crush Groove was all about that. So I just want to end. It took somebody who knew art, who knew Picasso, who knew Rembrandt, to say, hold up, wait, this graffiti that they're doing is art. So if you go to the art galleries in Manhattan right now, right next to Picasso and Rembrandt and Keith Haring and Basquiat is graffiti artist art. Yeah. So we saw we utilized what we was being taught by all the inspirations before us. Neil Young. Y'all know who Neil Young is, right? Remember there was a shooting at Kent University? If you listen to Ohio is one of the greatest hip-hop records in history. 10 soldiers and Nixon's coming. He's finally in there. It's the greatest hip-hop record. But the reason why we say that is he saw a shooting on Kent University where the soldiers shot what the hell are they doing? They shot the college students. He didn't wait for his manager. He didn't wait for his record label. He ran to the studio and he created that record. He put that record out and it represented something.
Yeah, he was definitely a leader on that end. But let's bring it back to you for a second. And I may have this totally wrong, but you were talking about your love of comics before. Is it true that you were able to first buy DJ equipment off of selling comics when you were a kid?
Yes, because we had no money. The only thing that we had worth something was comic books. So me and my brother Alfred was like, we got to get these turntables. We have to get 2 turntables in a mixer. So my brother, he was funny. He was older. And my older brother was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a comic book sale. I was like, no. We're going to do a comic book sale to get 2 turntables, some records, and a mixer. And we got the 2 turntables. I had to sell all my comic books. But fortunately, it worked out. Yeah. So I'm not that mad at him.
But now that you have your own comic company, again, plug, Daryl Makes Comics.
Daryl Makes Comics.
What's the latest release from Daryl Makes Comics?
DMC number 3 is out right now. I got 3 graphic novels out. And when I started the comic book company, I put out an 8-page issue 0, a snippet. Or in music, you would call it a snippet. In the food business, you would call it sample. When you start a business, you create, if I'm doing chewing gum, I'll hire some kids to stand at the subway with people going to work and give out 1 piece of my gum for free. Right. So when I started the comic book company, I did an 8-page issue 0, put that out to introduce people to the world. Then I did a DMC issue number 1, the first graphic novel, which is about 80 pages. Mm-hmm. And then I did a 1.5, another 8-pager that introduced issue number 2. So the Daryl Makes Comic universe is now up to DMC number 3. 3.5 is out right now. And then DMC #4 will debut this year, 2023, at the New York City Comic Con.
Wow.
Yeah. And the reason I didn't want to do a comic book.
But you did.
Yeah. A friend of mine named Riggs Morales, who was actually Eminem's A&R over at Shady Records, he's the guy that encouraged me to do a comic book. And I didn't want to do it at first, but it all goes back to this. I said, why should I do a comic book? Number one, you love them. But number two, he said you could do the same thing you've been doing with your music all these years. And I was like, what? Inspire, motivate, and educate while you entertain. So it fit right into what I was already doing. I didn't know all the stuff that I was going through was actually the setup. It was preparation to prepare me to be here today.
Right. And going back to your music career, another thing that fascinates me about you is the collaborators that you've had over the years, not just Aerosmith, of course.
Right.
So if we look at your recent work with Ice-T and DJ Jazzy Jeff, that has nothing to do with you working with Sarah McLachlan.
Oh, right.
That has nothing to do with you working with Mick Mars from Motley Crue.
Right.
And that, I believe that album also had contributions from Kid Rock on there.
Yes.
But then you've also worked with Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit and Bumblefoot from Guns N' Roses.
Charlie Bernante from Anthrax.
Yeah. So it's
Rob Dukes from Exodus.
Yeah, it's metal.
Joan Jett.
Joan Jett, who's from lives in which town?
Joan Jett.
This town.
Yep, Joan Jett. I've got a song coming with Joan. Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see that you've always been so open to all the different genres, and your interests are all over the place in a great way, where you like highbrow and lowbrow.
Right.
So this is the question I have for you.
Okay.
I think that you have one of the best third acts in music ever, because you had a very rough childhood. Then you had all that success with Run DMC. Then the 90s weren't so kind to you.
Right, exactly.
But you bounced back, as we learn about in your memoir from a couple of years ago, which do we know, do they have the book here? If not, let's get Nassau County.
10 Ways Not to Commit Suicide.
Yeah. It is a fantastic, fantastic read, and you talk about it at the beginning of that, how the late 90s were rough to you. So my question is, when did you realize that you were going to be okay in your career, having this diverse career with all these different companies, all these collaborations?
When I realized, first of all, when I got sober, I've been sober how long, Buki? 2004.
Wow, so almost 20 years.
That's my wife over there. Say hi, Buki. When I realized that you don't have to do anything to please anybody except yourself. You don't got to fit in. You ain't got to dress like anybody. You ain't got to act like anybody. The reason why you have all of these thoughts is because they're a part of you. And if you could get lost, because people will tell you could do one thing, and they'll try to keep you doing one thing. For me, it was like, you need to be on the radio. You need to make money. You need to be famous. You need to chart. You need to tour. All of these needs. So I'm listening to their needs. And then I realized the only thing that I need to do is be happy. Yeah. And, kids are all over the place for a good reason, because everything that a child has in them that they don't get allowed to express creatively, if they don't let them out, it will destroy them. So roll with them, let them investigate, let them be creative. Albert Einstein, the smartest man in history, said this: imagination is more important than knowledge. Albert Einstein, he didn't say knowledge wasn't important. He said imagination is more important than knowledge, because if you put knowledge with that imagination, Walk This Way happens. My Adidas happens.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I want to ask you about before we have the intermission, all that, is you're performing later, because I think that this audience has been fantastic, that you'll give them some music later.
I'll perform with the incredible band we have here tonight.
Okay. How did these guys get onto your radar?
These guys, where's Olivia at? Olivia still here? Where's Olivia at? Say hi, Olivia. Yes. She informed me that there was this band that was just buzzing because they were doing my song "It's Tricky," and then I sent a reply to say how incredible they were and stuff like that. And then we just started having this relationship, and I was like, I want to come play with you guys and this and that. So it was funny. We were trying to find all of these big venues and stuff like that, but then we said, you know what? Let's do something that can have that's accessible for all the people. And then you know what? Let's do it at the library.
And here we are.
So they brought me, these guys brought me to their library to perform with them.
And without giving away what you'll be performing with them, it might be, it's tricky. It might be in there.
It's a little tricky. We might take a tricky little walk down memory lane.
But something about that song, which I've never heard talked about, that song includes a riff from the Knack.
Yes,
My
a lot of
Sharona.
people didn't know it was My Sharona. Dun, 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 dun.
Now,
And the other thing is this. We got it from somebody else. Think about tricky. It's tricky to rock and rhyme, that's right on time. It's tricky to rock and rhyme, that's right. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Hey, Mickey. Hey, Mickey.
well,
So shout out to Tony Basil.
and Tony Basil, anytime you see a movie which has 60s style go-go dancing, she choreographed it. So
Oh, for
Austin
sure.
Powers and
Yep.
all that stuff. So
She's amazing.
who brought the idea to copy, in a way, My Sharona? Was that Rick? Was that
No.
you?
My Sharona, this is funny. My Sharona was actually a song on this breakbeat album. There was a breakbeat album from the late 70s, early 80s called Disco Breaks that had all the breakbeats from all the records. My Sharona was actually one of those records. So it's like I said, a lot of rock records, a lot of folk records, a lot of pop records were disco breaks that hip hop utilized because we didn't have we wasn't able to go in the studios. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have no money. We had no access to that. So we had to steal, we had to utilize other people's music to make our own.
And then the amazing full circle thing about that is now you guys get sampled. So when you listen to
All
the
over the
Judgment
place.
Night soundtrack,
Yes.
where you collaborate with Living Color, that's Living Color basically sampling Run
Sampling us.
DMC.
Yep, and you can hear my, oh yeah, check this out. On every house record, club record, all over the place.
So the
Yeah.
guys who sampled ultimately got sampled.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Full circle in
Yeah.
an amazing
What
way.
you get and give, you will get. If that makes sense.
And hopefully you will all be getting a performance very soon after this intermission. So thank you all for, I'm seeing a show of hands. Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
Okay.
Wow, thank you. Appreciate that.
That's
And my children's book's Daryl's Dream. It's out now. It's for kindergarten to 5th grade. It's available where all books are sold, or you can go to Amazon.com/YoungDMC. And basically, it's a book that deals with bullying and telling kids, believe in yourselves no matter what the knucklehead bullies say, because the very thing that they tease you about is the very thing that will make you potent, prominent, and powerful. In the book, I don't want to wear my glasses no more, and this and that. I still need my glasses. I got contacts on now. But in the book, I don't like my glasses, but then I realized and learned to love myself as I am.
But you made Guyzz cool.
Yes, I always tell people, ask your grandmother and grandfather who in hip-hop made wearing glasses cool. And that was a powerful thing because people that didn't even need glasses want to wear glasses because of the guy that got teased about wearing glasses.
So I believe we're going to, we have one more show of hands
yes.
right there.
Oh, yes, 2009. All right, we'll close out with that. That's great. What's funny is Run DMC got inducted. Now, look, getting inducted was huge, but just being considered worthy enough for induction was a huge thing because, look, we stole and sampled all the music of the people that was already in there. But the beautiful thing like that, and this goes back to the young people too, their imagination, their vision. when we got inducted in 2009, they called me over. Daryl, come here. We need to tell you something. You guys were prophetic. And I was like, what do you mean we're prophetic? They said in 1985, remember, we did Rockbox 1984, which was the first hip-hop video on MTV. Then in 1985, we did a song called King of Rock with Larry Bud Melman from the David Letterman show at the front door of a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame museum going, you guys can't come in here. This is a rock and roll museum. And then we screen King of Rock and we run in there. What's crazy is they was like, D, you guys were prophetic. I said, what do you mean? They said in 85, you did this video called King of Rock with Run DMC getting denied entry into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's like, yeah, what's the big deal? It didn't exist in 85. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame didn't start till 86. Yeah. And what's hit, to close that out, the other funny story is, now, we knew that a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame had to exist since the 50s because of rock and roll. It didn't. So when they told us, when we made the video because we knew it already existed. Right. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame told us it didn't exist when you made the video. But here's a funny story. We used to fly out of JFK all the time. So every time we was leaving JFK, Prince would be coming. And every time we was going, Prince would come when we're going, and when we're going, he's coming. So I remember about the 18th time that we seen Prince, we would all see Prince in all of his purple magnificence. And he's coming, the whole airport would be like Prince. So we said, hey, Prince, hey, guys, what's up? On the 18th time, in 1986, he goes, you guys are going to be in a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he keeps walking. So me and Run and Jay turned, he said, what the hell is he talking about? This and that, boom, bang, boom, bang. Come to find out, Prince was prophetic because he said it to us in 86. Because in 85, we made a video about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that didn't exist, but he knew that it was coming, and Adidas Walk This Way was coming out. So thank you for bringing that up. But inspiration, who inspires you? All those people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inspired us. And now I have an exhibit in there too. So young kids in here, always know this. I'm not better than you. I'm not smarter than you. I'm not greater than you. And I may not be more talented than you. But what I represent to all of y'all is the potential and the opportunity that awaits you when you're kind, smart, creative, and you have an enthusiasm about yourself regardless of what all the people say. Thank you.
Daryl, wow. Wow. Everybody stick around and expect some magic.
We'll be back. Can I introduce myself to y'all? Can I introduce myself to them? All right. In case you didn't know, I'm the king, I'm the king, I'm the king, I'm the king, I'm the king of rock. There is none higher. Sucker MCs should call me sire. To burn my kingdom, you must use fire. I won't stop rocking till I retire. Now we all cut to another rapper. Because I'm Mr. Legend, everybody know who these guys are. I just want to make sure everybody know who I was. And I was talking with these great musicians, and we was talking about how people have a perception that this is easy. You know what I'm saying? Hours and hours of practice, right? Sometimes you practice alone, right? Beating on pots and pans, right? I know it's not the drums sometimes, right? I know you don't only sing in the shower, you're probably singing to sleep, you're probably singing on the way to school, you're probably singing while you're doing your homework. But what we're trying to say is, and my man A over here, he can back this up. It doesn't have to be difficult, right? It doesn't have to be hard, right? But what they don't know is this music stuff could be a little tricky. This teaches my recital. I think it's very vital.
let y'all go, these guys is letting us know that to make it through these rough times in this world that we in, you gotta be ready. And if these young people right here don't show us that the next generation is ready, I don't know what to tell you. So we gonna take this little walk down memory lane, but these guys told me it's gotta be right for these guys. These guys just don't do it for anybody. So let me make sure. You people over here, are y'all ready? Yeah! I'm gonna make sure that sounds good too. Are you people over here, are y'all ready? Yeah! What about the people in the back? Are y'all ready? People in the middle? Yeah! And I know the people in the front are ready. Yeah! So Lars, I got one question for those people over there. Are you ready for some rock and roll? Whoa! Do me a favor. Put a hand up. Everybody, put a hand up. Put a hand up. Everybody, put a hand up. Put a hand up. Everybody, put a hand up. Put a hand up. 1, 2, 3, let's go! With a classic and a sexy little skirt, they all wear petite. There was 3 young ladies in a junior block and they found they were looking at G. I was a high school loser, never made it with a lady till the boys told me something, man. Then my next door neighbor with a daughter had a favor, and I gave a girl a little kiss like